A custody battle, a restraining order, and allegations that could change everything overnight. That's exactly what just happened between Dakota Mortensen and Taylor Frankie Paul. One moment, they were known for their messy, on and off relationship, and the next, it turned into a situation involving claims of physical confrontation, a child caught in the middle, and a court stepping in fast. But here's where it gets even more intense. Both sides are telling completely different stories, and if you think you already know what happened, there's a lot more to this that people aren't talking about. Everything changed with one court decision that no one saw coming. Dakota Mortensen was suddenly granted a temporary restraining order, and at the same time, temporary custody of his 2-year-old son. That kind of move doesn't happen lightly. Courts usually take their time with situations like this, especially when a child is involved. So for a judge to step in this quickly, it suggests something serious was presented behind closed doors, and it didn't stop there. A full hearing has already been scheduled for April 7th, the moment when Taylor Frankie Paul will finally have the chance to respond in court and tell her side of the story. Until then, this temporary order stays in place, meaning, for now, Dakota has control of the situation. But here's the thing, decisions like this don't come out of nowhere. Something must have happened leading up to it, something strong enough to convince a court to act fast, and when those details started coming out, that's when the story took a much darker turn. The situation escalated because of what was described in those court documents, and the details are hard to ignore. According to reports, an incident on February 23 is what set everything in motion. Dakota Mortensen claims that during a confrontation, Taylor Frankie Paul allegedly put her hands around his neck. He stated that he had to physically pull her hands away just to breathe, a moment that, if true, explains why things escalated so quickly afterward. But it didn't stop there. Just one day later, another situation reportedly unfolded inside his car. Documents suggest that tensions rose again, and he claims he was attacked while unable to safely leave the situation. And then there's the detail that made this even more alarming. He also stated that their young child had been left inside the home during the chaos. And now, it's important to be clear, these are claims made in legal documents, and the full truth hasn't been confirmed in court yet. But even as these details started spreading, people quickly realized this wasn't just another messy breakup. Something much deeper, and potentially more serious, was going on behind the scenes, and just when it seemed like the narrative was set, everything flipped. This didn't come out of a perfect relationship. In fact, if you go back, the connection between Dakota Mortensen and Taylor Frankie Paul had been unstable for a long time. They had been on and off since 2022, breaking up, getting back together, and repeating that cycle more than once. From the outside, it sometimes looked like they were trying to make things work, but people who followed them closely started noticing cracks early on. There were moments where things felt off, interactions that seemed tense, and sudden shifts that didn't quite add up. And nothing concrete at the time, just small signs that something wasn't right behind the scenes. And now, looking back, those moments are being re-examined in a completely different light. Some fans believe the warning signs were always there. Others think the situation might have been more complicated than anyone realized, because relationships like this don't usually explode overnight. They build pressure slowly until something finally breaks, and in this case, when it did, it didn't just stay between them. It turned into something much bigger. Just when it seemed like the narrative was leaning one way, everything flipped. Because Taylor Frankie Paul didn't just deny what was being said, she came forward with a version of events that completely changed how people were looking at this situation. Through a spokesperson, a statement was released claiming that she had actually been the one dealing with years of emotional and physical harm. According to that statement, she had stayed silent out of fear of retaliation, fear of things escalating, and fear of being publicly torn apart if she spoke up. It even suggested that what people were seeing now was only a small piece of a much bigger story. And suddenly, this wasn't just about one incident anymore. It became a back-and forth of serious claims, with both sides essentially pointing at each other. Now here's where things get complicated, because none of these claims have been fully proven in court yet. Everything at this stage is what's being said, not what's been confirmed. But even so, her response shifted the entire conversation. Instead of a clear narrative, people were now looking at two completely different realities, and depending on who you believe, the story changes entirely. The moment both sides of the story hit the internet, everything exploded. People weren't just reacting, they were picking sides. Some immediately backed Dakota Mortensen, pointing to the court's decision as a sign that something serious must have been presented behind the scenes. For them, the restraining order and custody shift felt like proof that the situation wasn't being taken lightly. But others weren't convinced. A huge number of fans stood behind Taylor Frankie Paul, saying her statements sounded like someone who had been holding things in for a long time. They argued that situations like this are rarely as simple as they seem, and that there could be more happening that hasn't come out yet. And then there were the people stuck in the middle, questioning everything, because when two completely different stories collide like this, it becomes almost impossible to know what's real and what isn't. Social media only made things more intense. Clips, old posts, and past moments started resurfacing. People began analyzing every detail, trying to connect dots that may or may not even exist. Rumors started spreading fast. Some claimed there were signs long before this, others believed the timing of everything felt suspicious. There's one part of this situation that people can't stop focusing on, and it raises a lot of questions. It's the speed of the court's decision. Because for Dakota Mortensen to be granted both a temporary restraining order and custody so quickly, something significant must have been presented. Courts don't usually make moves like this without reviewing serious claims or evidence, especially when a child is involved, and that's exactly why some people believe the situation behind the scenes might be more intense than what's publicly known. But at the same time, others are pointing out that this is only a temporary order. It's not a final judgment. It doesn't mean the entire case has been decided, it just means the court felt there was enough concern to act in the moment. That's when the full court hearing is set to take place, and Taylor Frankie Paul will finally have the chance to respond officially to all the claims. It's the moment when temporary orders could be extended, altered, or even overturned, meaning custody, restraining orders, and reputations could all be on the line. For Dakota, this hearing could confirm the court's initial actions or force him to defend his side even further. For Taylor, it's the chance to present her story in full and potentially shift the narrative that's been dominating headlines. Fans and observers are already speculating about what could happen. Will the court side with Dakota, or will Taylor's claims finally gain legal weight? Could there be a compromise, or will the drama escalate even further? One thing is certain, the outcome will have consequences far beyond the courtroom. Careers, public perception, and the lives of everyone involved, especially their young son, hang in the balance. Right now, the full truth remains unclear. Both Dakota Mortensen and Taylor Frankie Paul claim to be the victim, and both sides have compelling arguments, at least on the surface. What's undeniable is that this situation has exposed just how complicated relationships can become when private conflicts spill into the public eye. Social media, court documents, and public statements have all added pieces to a puzzle that's still incomplete. April 7th will bring answers, but until then, it's a waiting game. Fans, observers, and the media are left to question what really happened and to consider just how much of what we see online can be trusted. This isn't just a story about a restraining order or custody. It's about the fragile line between public image and private life, the stories people don't tell, and the consequences when those stories finally come out. Who's telling the truth? Who's being misunderstood? And how much of this is shaped by perception versus reality? For now, we can only watch, wait, and prepare for the next twist in a story that's far from over.